Hello guys, tonight we're going to travel far, farther than any scroll, stone tablet or painted cave wall has recorded. Tonight we step into a forgotten chapter of our shared story, a time not just ancient but almost erased. This is the world as it was 70,000 years ago, when the winds were sharper, the nights were darker, and the earth was still deciding if humans would even be part of her future. At that time, there were only around 2,000 of us left. Before we begin, I'd love for you to tell me, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? I'm always curious to imagine who's listening and where as we float together through history. Now please, get cozy, pull the blanket a little tighter, let your head sink into the pillow, let your body soften, let the world around you fade away, and prepare to drift, not just into sleep, but into the deep echoes of time. Let's begin. You open your eyes to a world unmarked by roads, cities, or walls. There is no hum of electricity, no glass, no iron, no books, no names. Only the low rustle of grass in the wind, the occasional crack of a branch far off in the forest, and the muffled hush of bare feet on damp earth. You are in Africa, somewhere near the Horn, close to the coast, but inland enough that the sea is only a whisper in the air. It is morning. The sun is slow to rise, filtered through layers of dust and cloud, casting the world in dull ochre light. There are no clear skies here. The air carries a strange heaviness, a hint of ash far off smoke. You don't understand it, but you feel it in your chest. Around you the land stretches in quiet desolation. Dry plains dotted with twisted acacia trees, cracked soil, the bones of old animals half buried in sand. Not long ago rains failed, seasons twisted, the food thinned, and those who remained had to choose move or die. You are part of a group, no more than 30 humans, your kin, your tribe. You do not call yourselves Homo sapiens. You have no name for what you are, but you know who is yours and who is not. That is enough. You rise before the sun most days, gathering what little there is, roots, nuts, a few berries if you're lucky, occasionally something bigger if the hunters return. But lately the hunters are slower, thinner. There are whispers that another family, 3 valleys away, simply vanished. No tracks, no bones, just gone. Sometimes at night, around the fire, the elders speak low and serious. You only catch fragments. Something about the great drying. Something about the fire that fell from the sky many years ago. Some say it was punishment from the spirits. Others think it was just chance. But the stories always end the same way. People died. So many. And now there are barely any of you left. The fire is your lifeline. You sit near it at night, staring into the amber glow. The stars above are thick, cold, unknowable. There are no lights but your own. No other voices but the ones beside you. You are 17 winters old, or maybe 18, no one counts the same. But you are old enough now to watch the forest's edge, to take your turn with the stone spear, to feel the ache of hunger without complaining. There is a silence that lives here, deep, ancient, the silence of a world before words, before certainty. Every breath you take is part of a fragile thread, binding you to the few others who remain. You do not know that there are only 2,000 of you on the planet. You do not know how close the edge truly is, but something in you feels it. That tremble in your chest when the moon rises red. That pause in your steps when no bird sings. That sense that the earth herself is watching, deciding. Will she let you stay? You dream sometimes of the world beyond the hills, a world where the air is clean, the game is fat, and the trees are green again. No one knows if such a place exists, but some believe in it. Others simply keep walking. The wind has shifted. You can taste it. A thin salt on the air, faint like memory but enough to stir the camp. Your feet ache from days of walking, but the elders say there is no choice. The land behind you has gone quiet, too quiet. The streams have dried to trickles. The game is gone, even the birds have stopped calling from the trees. So you walk. It begins before the sun touches the rim of the world. One by one the group stirs, wrapping themselves in old animal skins, checking slings, bags, spears. The fire is left to die, its smoke curling slowly into the pale morning. You do not look back. That is not your way. The only direction is forward. Your legs move automatically now. Across scrub and stone, over shallow valleys and open plains, the pace is slow, steady. Your tribe is not strong enough to rush anymore. Each step carries the weight of generations, of ancestors whose names are lost but whose faces flicker in your dreams. To your left, the land opens into brittle grassland. Brown, broken stalks sway like ghosts. To your right, the jagged bones of hills rise, etched by wind and time. Far above, vultures drift in lazy spirals, watching, always watching. You try not to look at them for too long. There is no map in your hands, only memory. A path passed down from elder to elder, shaped by word, by scent, by stars. And tonight, if all goes well, you'll reach the ancient river, the one the oldest among you calls the Mother Thread. She says it once teemed with fish and shaded banks. You have never seen it like that, but you believe her. As you walk, the air warms, insects buzz and flicker. A lone antelope startles in the distance, bounding away before you can blink. Your stomach turns, tight with hunger, but you say nothing. No one does. The last hunt brought little, a few hares, a half-starved gazelle. There are too many mouths, too few teeth, but still, you move. That's what humans do best. Even on the edge of extinction, they keep going. By midday, the group pauses under a ridge of wind-worn stone. The shadows offer only slight relief, but enough to rest the legs. Water is shared carefully. A single gourd, passed hand to hand. When it reaches you, the cool drops soothe your cracked lips. You try not to take more than your share. Beside you, a child no older than 6 plays with a hollowed beetle shell, tracing circles in the dust. Her laughter is thin, barely a sound, but it cuts through the silence like a songbird. You feel something stir in your chest, something like hope, or maybe longing. The elders speak in low tones. One draws shapes in the dust with a stick, a fork in the journey. One path leads to the coast, where food might be found. The other to the highlands, where the rains might come sooner. No one knows for sure. There are no right choices anymore, only ones that buy more time. The break ends too soon, and the group begins moving again. The sun is lower now, and your shadow stretches long before you. The sky has turned pale gold, the colour of dried grass, and just ahead, as you crest a rise, you see it. The shimmer of water. A bend in the earth, the river. It is not what you imagined. The banks are cracked, the flow is thin, slow, more mud than current, but it is water, and for tonight, that is enough. Camp is made quickly. Stones for a hearth, leaves for bedding, wood gathered from thorny brush, dry but useful. As darkness falls, the fire returns, small but alive. You huddle near it, legs tucked close, your back against another's shoulder. The stars bloom slowly above like ancient eyes. There are no stories tonight, just the crackle of flame and the sound of breathing. You close your eyes. The earth beneath you is warm from the day's sun. A single nightbird calls from the trees. Somewhere out there, beyond this moment, humans are vanishing, bit by bit, family by family. But tonight, you remain. Your fire burns, your people breathe, and the river still moves, however faintly. The night passes quietly, with only the faint creak of trees and the occasional shuffle of someone turning in sleep. You lie curled near the warmth of the fire, wrapped in the pelt of a gazelle long since eaten, and the rhythm of breath around you lulls you deeper into stillness. But before the first light touches the horizon, you are awake again. Something is different. The river speaks louder today, not in volume, but in voice, as if it remembers, as if it carries more than just water. You rise and walk alone for a few steps, your toes sinking into the damp silt at the river's edge. The air is cooler here. A mist clings low over the ground, like the breath of some slow-moving spirit. You crouch, dip your hand in the water, and taste the metallic trace on your tongue. It's not clean, not pure, but it will sustain you. The others begin to stir, shadows moving in silence. Breakfast is nothing more than boiled root, bitter and fibrous, but you eat it without complaint. Across the river, the land slopes upward, dark with unfamiliar trees. The elder with the clouded eye, Marla, says this place is known, but feared. She calls it the Path of Bones. No one asks why. You'll see soon enough. The group breaks camp, and the fire is doused. The coals hiss into silence, and then you cross. The water is shallow, warm around your ankles, but you feel a pull in your chest, like you are crossing not just a river, but a line. The forest beyond is quieter than any you've known. No birds, no insects. Even the wind seems to move with caution here. You walk carefully, eyes scanning the undergrowth, ears tuned to every sound. The ground is soft, covered in moss and fallen leaves. And then, you see the first one, a skull. It lies half buried beneath a crooked tree, its edges smoothed by time. Not animal, human. The group pauses, but no one speaks. You move on. Another 100 steps, and you find more ribs, femurs, shattered pieces of jaw. Some old, weathered white, others newer, still wrapped in dark, sun-leathered skin. This is no burial ground. This is the work of something else. You feel it in the air, the predator's breath, long gone maybe, or still watching. Marla whispers that many years ago, during the Great Drying, families fled through this forest seeking water. Few emerged. Some say the beasts took them. Others say they turned on each other. But that was then. Now it is your turn to pass. The way narrows, the canopy thickens, and the air becomes heavy, like breathing through wet cloth. You press on, always forward. The forest watches. The bones beneath your feet crunch softly, softly. You do not stop. By afternoon the bones disappear, the forest thins, you emerge into a wide hollow, where the sun filters through again and the world feels just a little lighter. You stop there for the night. No one says it aloud, but you know you've made it. You crossed the place of death, and now for a moment you live. That night the fire is lit with reverence. A ring of stones is placed around it, and a bone is laid beside each flame, not in fear, but in memory. You sit close, the heat soaking into your chest, and you watch the stars blink through the branches above. Someone begins to hum, soft and low, a tune older than language, a song of walking, of surviving. And you lean back, the moss beneath you soft like fur. The world spins slowly, quietly, on the edge of oblivion. But you are here, you are still here. The sun rises with a hush, veiled behind a gauze of coastal mist. You wake to the scent of salt and something else, something vast. For days the elders have spoken of it, but now you feel it in your lungs, taste it on your skin. The sea. It is still far, but no longer a myth. The air has changed. The trees are fewer here, stunted and wind-scarred, as if bowed by centuries of ocean breath. Birds wheel overhead, larger than those inland, with sharp cries that echo strangely against the sky. The group walks slower today, not from weariness, but from reverence. You follow an ancient animal trail carved into the hills, winding through tall grass and sun-bleached rock. The land rolls gently here, but your legs feel it all the same. You've grown leaner, your muscles tighter from weeks of moving. Hunger has become a quiet companion, always there, always pressing, but never speaking first. Midday brings a pause beneath a weathered fig tree. Its roots claw into stone, twisted and gnarled, but its canopy gives shade, and that is all that matters. You sit and watch as the older hunters sharpen their tools, long spears chipped from stone, with sinew bindings darkened by sweat and age. You wonder what it must feel like to face something larger than you with nothing but sharpened rock. Soon they won't be hunting inland animals at all. The sea holds promise. But none of you really know what to expect. Some say it stretches endlessly, that it swallows the sun each night. Others say it breathes, that it speaks in roars and sighs and foam. Marla remembers it from her youth. She speaks softly, describing how once, when she was barely older than a child, her people stood beside it. She says it glowed beneath the moon, that the fish were silver and fat, that fires danced on the cliffs and stories were told in laughter. But that was before the Great Drying. before her people scattered like dust in the wind. Now you walk toward it not as explorers, but as survivors. In the evening, the hills part. You crest a rise, and there it is, the sea. It unfolds before you like the sky made liquid, vast, endless, trembling with pale gold where the setting sun kisses the waves. The wind rushes up to meet you, cool and insistent, tugging at your hair, your skin, your breath. You've never seen anything so wide, so alive. You descend slowly, the entire group silent, not from fear, but awe. Even the youngest child falls quiet. The shore is not soft, it is rocky, uneven, littered with driftwood and shells worn smooth. You kneel and press your hand to the ground. It is cold, alive. You taste the salt in the back of your throat. Some wade into the shallows, others sit on stones, staring out. Marla cries softly, her face lined with joy and something deeper, memory, maybe, or sorrow. You gather kelp, dig for shellfish, chase small crabs across the wet sand. There is food here, strange and slippery, but it is food. For the first time in weeks, the fire smells of fat. That night you eat well, your belly warms, laughter stirs gently at the edge of the group, like an ember in a long cold hearth. You watch the stars blink into life above the waves. The moon casts a silver road across the water, and for a moment it seems like you could walk across it, into forever. You lie back on the sand. The sea whispers endlessly, a sound that is both comfort and warning. Here, at the edge of the world, you feel small, but not forgotten. You've crossed mountains, forests and bones. Now you rest beside the ocean that might save your people, or swallow them. But for now, tonight, you are alive. You are warm. You are fed. The sea breathes in, and the sea breathes out. That's the rhythm you wake to, soft, steady, eternal. No birdsong, no rustling leaves, just the hush of waves pressing against stone, over and over, like the earth's slow heartbeat. You open your eyes to pale morning light, diffused through drifting mist. The world is grey and silver, and the sky above seems to hang low, close enough to touch. Your back aches from sleeping on rock, but you don't mind. The salt air fills your lungs. It's cool, sharp, alive. The fire from last night is nothing now but a scattering of ash and blackened stones. Someone is already rebuilding it. Others are down at the shore, checking the tide pools for food, hoping for crabs, sea slugs, anything. The land behind you offers little now. The sea is your new mother, but she is a hard one. No one in your group truly understands the ocean. It's too big, too alien. You can't track fish by their prints. You can't smell them in the grass. The rules here are strange, unwritten. But humans, even now, even here at the edge of survival, are watchers, listeners, learners. By midday you're gathering kelp and dark seaweed, twisting it into cords and drying it for later. One of the hunters has tied a sharpened stone to a long reed, wading waist deep in the surf, stabbing at shadows in the water. He comes back empty-handed, but you all cheer him anyway. Hope has weight. You all carry it. The elders speak again tonight, seated close around the fire. The flames dance low and orange, painting their faces with flickering warmth. They talk of new tools, how shells can be carved, how bone hooks might be made, how sinew can be dried and tied to fish spears. You listen quietly, your hands in the sand, drawing lines without meaning. And then Marla speaks. She tells a story from before you were born, before even your parents were born, a time when humans first found the sea, how a small group, starving inland, had stumbled upon the coast after weeks of wandering, how they thought the water was poisoned at first, too bitter to drink, too wild to trust. But one man had watched a gull dive into a wave and come up with something wriggling in its beak, and he had learned. She says that man taught his family to watch the birds, to follow the tides, to crack the shells, that he passed it on, child to child, flame to flame, that perhaps it was his descendants who would one day fill the earth again. You wonder if your group will be remembered like that, if any of this will survive. Later, as the fire fades and the stars begin to bloom across the sky, Someone brings a smooth, dark stone from the water. It fits perfectly in the hand, curved by time. They pass it around, and each person touches it. Not for luck, not for prayer, just to feel something shaped by something older than themselves. You take your turn. The stone is cool, comforting. You press it to your chest. Tonight, you do not sleep inland. In the trees, you sleep close to the water. The sound of waves fills your ears. The salt clings to your skin. And the moon is a perfect white eye, watching you from above. The sea has not killed you. Not yet. You wake to the scent of smoke, not from your own fire, but from somewhere else. It's faint, distant, carried inland on the morning wind. Your eyes open slowly as the sea continues its rhythmic song beside you, but now there's something new woven into it, something unfamiliar. You sit up on the flat stone where you slept, sea mist still clinging to your skin, and glance toward the hills. The sun is only just rising, soft and dull behind grey clouds, but already there's movement. The others have smelled it too. Smoke means fire, and fire means people. No one speaks right away. You gather your things quietly. Skins, slings, the small bundle of dried seaweed from yesterday's harvest. The hunters grip their spears more tightly today. There are so few of you left in the world, and yet there might be others, and that is both hope and danger. By mid-morning you begin moving up along the coastal ridge. The trail is rough, sharp rocks, sea cliffs, thorny brush, but your bare feet know the rhythm now. One step, then another, always forward. You pass ancient boulders blackened by time and tide. Birds scream above the surf. The air grows warmer with every step inland. Then you see it. A thin curl of grey rising just over the hills, steady and sure. Not an accident, not lightning-struck grass. This is someone's hearth. Marla's voice is low behind you. She remembers the old rules. When approaching a fire that is not your own, you never do it with a weapon raised. You let them see your empty hands first. You let them speak. If they do not run, then perhaps they remember the same stories your people do. You crest the ridge slowly, and there they are. A small group, maybe a dozen, all thin, all watchful. Their fire is shallow, protected by a circle of stone. Beside it, children. One older man is sharpening a bone knife on a flat rock. A woman is plucking something from the sand, roots maybe. You stay at the edge of the clearing, half hidden by the brush, not moving. Then one of them sees you. There is a long silence, long enough that your breath catches. Then she lifts a hand, palm open, empty. You do the same. And just like that, a bridge is built. Not of words, not of stone, but of gestures, of memory, of the shared, desperate instinct to survive. You and your group step forward slowly, warily. The others do too. It's awkward, careful, but there's no shouting, no spears thrown, only eyes watching, mouths closed, hearts thudding in silent rhythm. The two groups sit near the fire together, though not close, a respectful distance. They offer you roasted root, burned on the edges but edible. You offer dried seaweed, still damp with salt. A quiet exchange, no language needed. Marla makes soft sounds, tries old words. The strangers nod, some of the words are familiar, the same roots, like cousins forgotten and now remembered. That night the two fires burn side by side, not one, not yet. Trust is a slow thing, like water wearing stone, but something sacred has begun. You lie down in a new place, beside people whose names you don't know, whose faces remind you of dreams. You listen to both groups murmur in low tones. You hear laughter, real and sudden, when one child offers a crab claw as a gift. The mothers smile. Above you the stars shimmer faintly. The moon is high again, thinner now, but bright. You close your eyes with your hand resting on your chest, fingers curled around a shell from the tide pool. A new fire flickers behind your lids, not just warmth, but something more. Possibility. you are no longer the only firelight in the dark. The world has not swallowed you. The days after meeting the second group pass in cautious harmony. At first, the two fires remain separate, a quiet acknowledgement of boundaries. You sleep with your own people, eat with your own hands, but the circle is widening. Each evening, the distance grows smaller, and soon the children no longer notice which family they came with. They chase crabs together near the surf, throw sticks, laugh with mouths full of seawater. That laughter is like sunlight after storm, fragile but deeply welcome. You begin to learn from one another. The newcomers know the sea better. They've been here longer, perhaps always. Their spears are shorter, with broader heads, more suited to piercing slippery fish in shallow pools. They show you how to carve hooks from shell fragments, how to tie fine strands of sinew to make weighted nets. You watch closely, your hands copying the movement of theirs, and soon your fingers remember on their own. They, in turn, are shown how your group stores dried roots, how you coil bundles of smoked meat in thick leaves, how you shape stone into arrow points when there is no bone to spare. One evening, as the sky bruises with twilight, you sit beside one of the women. She's quiet, older than you by a generation, her face lined by sun and salt. She's smoothing a shard of shell against her thigh, turning it gently. You glance at her hands and recognize a movement taught to you by Marla. You mimic it once, then again, and she nods softly. No words, just understanding. The next morning, the fire is built as one, a larger hearth, fed with double the driftwood, surrounded by stones gathered from both camps. You sit together now, not separate. Meals are shared more freely. A small skin of water is passed between circles without hesitation. And that night, a story is told. Simple, fragmented, in gestures and broken syllables. But it's the first time you hear laughter ripple through both sides at once. But even here at the sea's edge, there is still the unknown. The world remains dangerous, thinly balanced. Food is found, but not always enough. One of the hunters from their group returns, limping, the edge of a stingray wound raw and swelling. Marla applies ash and wrapped kelp to draw the poison, and the man does not speak for 2 days. When he does, his voice is a whisper, but he lives. That alone feels like a victory. You walk along the cliffs one afternoon, alone but within sight of camp. The wind tears at your skin, full of salt and something colder. In the distance you see something that doesn't move, dark, long, tangled with seaweed, a carcass, a seal maybe, or something stranger. You don't approach, you simply watch it for a long time, wondering what else drifts in from beyond the horizon. There's so much you don't know, so much you never will. That night, as the fire crackles and 2 mothers braid their children's hair beside it, you sit with a fresh shell tool in your hand. It's smooth, sharp, light. You rub your thumb along the edge and watch the light catch in its curve. You think about how many things it took to make this moment. How many fires, how many footsteps, how many bones buried in forest far behind you. You think about how the earth came so close to wiping you out, and didn't. When you lie down on the flat stone again, the wind is calmer. The stars seem closer, the waves seem slower. You rest your head on your arm, legs curled, and let your breath fall into rhythm with the sea's ancient rhythm. The fire behind you warms your back, and for the first time in many moons, you don't dream of hunger or fear. You dream of hands, not reaching to take, but to share. The days near the sea begin to stretch into something unfamiliar, something like stability. Not comfort, not safety, but a routine that holds. The 2 groups become one, not by ceremony, but by need and quiet cooperation. A shared lookout is posted each morning on the rise near the bluff. Fires are rotated between hands. Children are watched not just by mothers, but by any nearby elder, as if every small life belongs to everyone now. Even the dogs, scrappy, half-wild things that followed the newcomers, begin to sleep beside your kin. A long stretch of coast becomes your world. Tide pools, sharp rock ledges, and hollowed driftwood logs where spiders hide and crabs nest. At low tide you wade out together, stepping gingerly over the slippery stones, long spears in hand. It's slow work, patient and cold, but sometimes rewarding. Octopuses cling to crevices, small fish dart between shadows. You watch and learn, copying the motion of a quick wrist, the sudden strike of a sharpened shell point. One evening, after the sky has dimmed and a damp breeze curls in from the open sea. A few of the older ones speak of something beyond these waters. Not spirits, not animals, but people. Distant cousins, wandering like you once did. They say that further down the coast, across headlands and salt cliffs, other fires have been seen. Smoke trails not from your own hearths, moving slowly, always toward the sea. The world might be emptying, but it is not yet empty. This idea takes root in your group's conversations. Could it be? Others, still alive, shaping their own fires, following their own fading memories of forests and droughts. Mala believes it. She always speaks slowly, but with certainty. She says there were always more than just one thread of people, that in the beginning humans moved like rivers, splitting, twisting, disappearing, but always flowing. You imagine it as she describes it, a continent of small groups, each holding their breath in the dark, each hoping they're not the last. The decision to move is not made in a single moment, but gradually. You stay by the sea for many more days. You eat, you mend tools, you gather water. But slowly, eyes begin to scan the horizon again, lingering longer at the curve of distant land. The hunters discuss routes along the cliffs, safe places to camp. The women begin drying larger stores of fish. You collect shells, not just for tools but as trade. You're not sure why, but it feels important. Then, without any special word or farewell, the journey begins again. You travel south this time, keeping the sea always at your side. The wind shifts daily, the clouds thicken, and the land changes. Some cliffs drop sharply, requiring long, slow paths around. Other places open into flat bays, littered with stone and salt. You see birds you don't recognize, long-legged, black-winged. You follow them as they lead you to coves filled with mussels and strange wriggling creatures that bite at your ankles. At night, you make camp just above the tide line, arranging driftwood and seaweed mats, sharing watch duties with the newcomers. It is on the 7th day of this coastal migration that you see something unmistakable. A line of footprints in the wet sand, not your own. They are recent, clear, human. The group halts, spears are gripped. No one speaks above a whisper. You kneel beside the prints, placing your hand beside them. They are smaller than yours, but not a child's. The stride is steady. Someone passed here not long ago, walking in the same direction as you. You follow. Hours later, you spot a distant figure on the far edge of a shallow inlet. A lone person standing near a driftwood fire. They see you and pause. They do not run. Slowly, they raise a hand, open palm, the same old gesture, and behind them, you see more movement. Another group, maybe 10, maybe more. Thin figures, watchful eyes. You realise the smoke in the distance wasn't from a dying forest or storm. It was from another camp, another circle of people learning to live same as you. Your fire was not the last. You descend the rocks, careful, cautious, but with something building in your chest that you haven't felt since the inland days. Not hope exactly, not yet, but momentum, like the earth turning forward again. When you reach the new group, there is no clash, no panic, only stillness. A moment held like breath. Both your people and theirs stand just apart, separated by a strip of wind-blown sand, each side waiting, watching. The sky is dim with the late light of afternoon, and gulls cry high above like distant spirits. You notice the scent of burning fat, something rich cooking in a shallow pit nearby, and the smell cuts through the tension in an oddly human way. A woman from their group steps forward. She is older, perhaps older than Mala, though her back is straight and her eyes sharp. Around her neck hangs a necklace of carved bones and red ochre beads, strange and beautiful. She looks at your people one by one, studying each face without fear, and then she nods once. Slowly, others from her camp begin to step forward too. A boy carries a water skin. A man offers dried fish laid out on a flat stone. Your group responds in kind. No words are exchanged, but things pass between hands. Gesture by gesture, the divide shrinks. By nightfall, your fires burn close together. It becomes clear that this group has been here for many moons. Their shelters are more permanent, woven mats of reeds stretched over driftwood frames, tools stored in carved rock crevices. They know the tides here, the dangers, the cycles of the birds. They share some words with your people, though many are different, like echoes of your own language distorted across time. You sit and listen to the elders speak in halting fragments, using gesture and symbol to fill the gaps. Stories rise between them, stories of journeys, of great thirst, of the silent forests and the broken mountains. Your tribe is not the first they've met. A man with a healed scar across his brow tells how, seasons ago, another fire came down from the cliffs. Those people stayed for a while, then moved on along the water's edge, disappearing into the southern winds. Some died, some vanished, but a few had spoken of lands where the grass was still green, where rain still came. You listen with rapt attention, piecing the story together from scattered images and broken syllables. A distant place, maybe real, maybe myth, but even the possibility is enough to stir something restless in you. Over the next days, the two groups begin to blend. Children run between shelters without hesitation. Tools are swapped, foods are shared. You find yourself beside people you didn't know days ago. Skin sun-darkened in different ways, voices holding unfamiliar tones, and yet, the way they tie knots, the way they shape fire, the way they cradle sleeping children, it's the same. You feel it deep in your chest. However far apart your people once were, they carried the same flame. You begin learning their skills. They show you how to trap fish with stone rings in the shallows, how to read the wind by watching the bending reeds, how to carve flutes from bird bones that sing like mourning owls. In return, your people teach them how to strip bark for healing, how to hunt small game inland, how to make glue from boiled hide. One afternoon, you and another youth from the new group climb a sea cliff together. The path is narrow, slick with salt and mist, but when you reach the top, the view is wide and staggering. The ocean rolls endlessly beneath you, grey and green and full of secrets. Far to the south, the land curves away, blurred by distance but not unreachable. You both sit in silence, legs dangling over the edge, sharing a smoked fish wrapped in dried leaves. There are no words for the feeling that settles in your chest. It's not joy, not exactly, but it is larger than fear, larger than hunger. It is the sense that the world is not entirely lost. In the days that follow, scouts are sent along the coast in both directions. They carry spears and shell tools, dried food and stories. They are told to return in 10 suns, or not at all. Some say this is dangerous, others say it is necessary. You volunteer to go, but Marla tells you to wait. Your time will come. Instead, you stay and help build a new structure, a large shelter with a roof thatched from reed and grass, where all can gather when the winds rise or the rains return. For now, it's dry season, and the clouds hang heavy but harmless. You work until your hands are blistered, your back aching. But at night, you lie near the fire and watch the stars shift across the sky in patterns you almost recognize. Something is happening here. Something slow, quiet, sacred. Not survival, but foundation. The world has not healed. The bones of the dying forests still lie beneath the soil. But here, where the fire meets the sea, the breath of humanity stirs again. The shoreline shifts with every tide, but some traces remain. A footprint pressed deep where the sand was damp. A broken shell pierced by human hands. A length of vine braided into a rope and left to dry in the sun. These are not natural things. They are signs, messages without words, left by those who came before, or those who may return. You walk the strand at dawn, alone but not unwatched. Others rise slowly back at camp, stirring coals, feeding the dogs. The wind pulls gently at your hair, and the mist rises from the sea in long, lazy fingers. Your feet move across cold sand, around pools of salt water trapped in depressions. Small fish flicker inside them, glittering like flakes of night sky. You notice something strange. A ring of stones, not large, just wide enough to surround a human sitting cross-legged. Inside it, old ash. Not fresh, but not yet fully scattered. A fire was made here. Not by your people, not by the others from the reed shelters, someone else. Recent enough that the stones are still warm from the sun's memory of the flame. You crouch beside it, fingertips grazing the inner ring. There's no fear, only a sense of curiosity, like the feeling when you find a smooth piece of bone shaped by hands long forgotten. You return to camp with this story. Not a warning, not an alarm, just something observed. Marla listens and nods slowly. The old woman with the ochre necklace hums low and thoughtful. A man you don't know well, from the reed dwellers, suggests that others may be trailing behind. Or ahead. Perhaps they paused here only briefly before moving on. Perhaps they watched your fires, as you once watched theirs. In the days that follow, more signs appear. A bundle of reeds tied in an unfamiliar knot. A woven bag half buried near a dune, containing dried berries you do not recognize. No bones, no bodies, only traces. The people who left these signs are gone now, their direction uncertain. But they passed close. They are not ghosts, they are real. Living, still out there. The elders speak of it as they prepare for the coming rain. The air has changed, thicker, heavier. Birds fly lower. At night the clouds block the stars, and the sea reflects only darkness. You help cover the shelters with mats of bundled grass, lashing them with vines. Everyone moves faster now. The winds will rise soon. The patterns are old, but your bones know them. You dream that night, not of fire or hunger, but of walking. Always walking. The land beneath you is not sand but stone, broken and scattered, and your feet are calloused and bleeding. You are not alone in the dream. Figures walk beside you, but they never turn their faces. Only their silhouettes move, quiet and enduring. You wake with your throat dry and the scent of smoke still in your nostrils. In the morning, a new group arrives. It is small, 5 people. 2 women, a man, and 2 children. They are thin, their skins marked by long exposure, their hands hard with travel. You spot them before they speak, walking from the north, following the same line of cliffs your people once walked. At first they stop at a distance, watching your camp with obvious uncertainty. You see them hesitate, weighing risk and need. Then one of the children steps forward, crossing the sand with a stick in his hand, not raised, just dragging it behind him in a quiet arc. He is maybe 6 or 7, tired, but unafraid. The rest follow. They carry no visible weapons, only skins, bundles, tools wrapped in netting. One of the women has a fresh wound on her shoulder, crusted with blood and dirt. You meet them in silence, your hand raised. They mimic the gesture. Their language is strange, sharper, made of sounds you barely recognize, but you understand the look in their eyes. The look of those who've come far with nothing left behind but memory. They are welcomed, slowly, carefully, but they are fed. The wound is cleaned, a shelter is prepared. Marla speaks to them in halting syllables, pulling at the roots of old words. The ochre necklace woman listens to their youngest tell something, maybe a story, maybe just nonsense, and she laughs once, sharp and sudden. Later that night, the new group sits beside your fire, not near it, beside it, as if the circle now belongs to all of you. One of your group plays a bone flute, a slow, steady melody that cuts gently through the sound of the wind. The new arrivals sit, with heads bowed, listening without speaking. One of the children falls asleep against her mother's leg, her hands still closed around a small stone. You look around the circle. These faces were strangers not long ago. And yet, here you all are, alive, beneath the same dark sky, bound not by blood, but by movement, loss, and firelight. You think about the footprints you found, the ashes, the distant fires. How many groups are walking still? How many still breathe under the same vast night? The rain begins just before dawn. Soft at first, the kind that seeps into the ground rather than pounding it. It brings the scent of stone, of soil, of old places. People rise slowly, adjust mats, protect the embers. But there is no panic. Your kind has endured worse. You will endure this too. The rain stays for days, not the wild, violent kind that scours the earth clean, but a steady, rhythmic curtain, that softens the ground and blurs the distance. The shoreline becomes quieter under it. Even the birds grow subdued. Their calls seem fewer, more thoughtful, as if they too are waiting for something to pass. The fire must be kept small beneath the reed shelters, fed with dry bits of driftwood and sea-split bark. Everything smells of smoke and damp skin. You spend most of these days inside the largest shelter, where the roof is lowest and the walls are thick with bundled grass. Here, stories are told, not loudly, not with laughter or flair, but in the quiet, matter-of-fact tone of people remembering not for entertainment, but for preservation. The stories are not about heroes. There are no triumphs, only movements. How a group once crossed a salt plain with nothing but fish bones and fire. How a woman bore a child beneath a dead tree, while hyenas circled the edge of her group's firelight. How a man fell into a gorge chasing a goat, and how they burned his body with resinous bark so his scent wouldn't draw carrion. These aren't tales meant to awe. They're instructions, records. The only history your people have, carried not in writing but in bone and voice. You listen closely. You can feel the weight of the stories as they're passed from mouth to mouth, the way they settle into the air like smoke. And though they don't always make sense, names you don't know, landscapes you've never seen, you feel as if you've lived parts of them already. The starving months, the long walks, the days when even the sun seemed cold. One of the new arrivals, a boy named Ari with burn scars across his arm, tells a story of mountains that rise straight from the sea, where snow clings year-round and the air is so thin you can see no breath. His people had passed through a high valley there, following goats. They had lost most of their number to cold and to something else, he doesn't say what, but he still carries a piece of black glass from the mountain's edge. He shows it to you. It is sharp as hunger and smooth as water. You wonder what kind of earth makes stone like that. The boy's eyes are older than his body. Later, when the rains slacken enough for short walks, you go with Marla down to the tide pools. The sea has risen and fallen so many times, it's created new shapes in the stone, like scars in the land. You both move slowly, carefully, gathering small shellfish, loose seaweed, whatever has not drowned or been swept away. Marla hums sometimes under her breath, a tune with no beginning, a sound that could be a lullaby or a warning. She tells you, not looking up, that long ago her mother taught her how to listen for bird songs that change before storms, that some birds vanish before the winds rise, that they feel the shift before humans do. She says the animals knew what was coming, all those generations ago, when the great heat came and the rains stopped and the forests died. Some ran, some hid, some adapted. You ask what humans did. She doesn't answer. When you return to camp, the rain has stopped for the first time in a week. The sky is still grey, heavy with clouds that seem to watch. But something is changing. The ground is softer beneath your feet. The air smells not just of water now, but of green. Somewhere inland, the plants are waking. The soil is remembering itself. The scouts who left many days ago have not returned, but no one speaks of it. Not yet. It is still early. Still possible they are alive, watching, walking. You keep the fire banked at night in case they see the glow from afar. You build simple markers along the path northward, cairns of 3 stones, always the same pattern. A message, you are not alone. As days pass, your group changes again, subtly. The newest arrivals begin speaking more freely. Their children help gather food without being told. 2 women, one from your group and one from theirs, begin weaving nets together in the mornings, shoulders touching. There is no leadership here. Not in the old sense, but slowly, naturally, the people begin to act like a single body again. Shared breath, shared fire, shared silence. You learn to make thread from twisted reeds, stronger than sinew in the wet air. You learn which fish leave trails in the sand when they nest, how to spot them from the patterns. You watch the elders debate the shape of the clouds, and whether the southern winds bring more warmth or more death. You try to listen without always needing to speak. On the 15th day after the rain began, a bird returns. It is small, dark-feathered, unfamiliar. It lands near the fire pit, watching with eyes like polished stone. Marla stops moving when she sees it. So does the woman with the ochre necklace. A moment of recognition passes between them. Not of the bird, but of the timing. That evening, preparations are made, quietly. The food is divided again, wrapped and bound. The fire is carried in a stone pot lined with dry moss. Those who are strongest begin packing. Those who are slowest are given lighter loads. There is no argument, only motion. The group will move again soon, southward, along the coast, beyond the reach of your current maps of memory. Somewhere ahead there may be forests. There may be rivers that still sing. There may be others. The world is still wounded, but it is not silent. The decision to move is made not with ceremony, but with the same quiet logic that governs every act of survival. No one announces it aloud. No voice rises in command. Instead, people simply begin. Spears are checked for cracks. Nets are repaired. Food is wrapped in leaves and placed in skin pouches. The fire is distributed among 3 carriers this time. Not because it is more precious, but because no one trusts the weather to stay dry. The coastline that lies ahead is unknown. The old woman with the ochre necklace says she passed this way long ago, when her legs were strong and her brother still lived. She remembers cliffs that cut sharp into the sea, and a narrow path above the waves where the wind never sleeps. She says there are places where the earth smells of sulphur, and water bubbles up from beneath the stones, hot enough to burn. She remembers finding a tooth there, once. Not human, large, blackened by age. They left it where it lay. You sleep only briefly the night before departure. The sand under your shelter is damp, and the sound of waves fills the air like breath in a quiet cave. You think of the scouts who have not returned. You think of the child with the dragging stick, the bird with polished eyes, the stone rings in the tide pools. You dream of walking again, always walking, and of something distant that you can almost see but not quite name. When morning comes, the group leaves in a single file line, threading through the dune grass and down toward the lower beach where the sand is firmer. The dogs follow. Children ride on backs. One of the elders, too weak to carry much, sings a low song that no one joins, but no one stops either. The sound follows you like a shadow. The ocean stays close on your right. Inland, the land rises steeply. Steep hills covered in bramble and scorched trees. You keep to the narrow strip between danger and salt, always moving, always scanning. Occasionally someone spots a crab, a shell, a trail of wet prints. You gather what you can as you go. No stop is longer than a few breaths, no rest without a lookout. On the 3rd day, you reach the cliffs. They rise not gradually but all at once. Sudden black faces of rock sliced clean by time and water. The sea slams into them with a fury you haven't seen in weeks, throwing up spray that smells of rot and foam. The path the old woman described is real, but barely. A shelf carved by erosion, no more than a body width wide in places, hugging the cliff just above the reach of the tide. You wait there until low tide before crossing. It is agreed, no children should walk this alone. So they are passed forward, one by one, held by many hands. You press your back to the stone, toes on wet rock, sea wind tugging at your skin. Every step feels like a question, every grip a test, but you move, all of you, as a chain, a rhythm. And when the far side is reached, a cry goes up, not joy but relief. The way behind is no longer an option. The way forward is all that remains. In the morning, you find bones, not scattered, arranged, a spiral of small bones, fish, bird, maybe rodent, set deliberately into the sand, half buried by time and wind. At the centre, a single human tooth, worn smooth, not recent, not child's. It is impossible to know who left it or why. A warning? A prayer? A marker of loss? You do not disturb it, you walk around it, eyes lowered. Marla says nothing, but the ochre woman presses her fingers to her brow and mutters something in a language you don't recognise. One of the younger men plants a sharp stick upright in the sand beside the spiral, not to challenge it, just to be seen. You keep walking. The coastline begins to change, less rock, more vegetation. Trees appear, not tall, not full, but persistent. Thin canopies of greenish-yellow leaves stretch over root systems clinging to rocky soil. Birds return to the sky in greater numbers. You hear frogs at night now, small croaks from unseen pools. The insects, too, grow more numerous. You swat them as you walk, irritated but quietly grateful. Insects mean water, water means life. There are moments, small and fragile, where the rhythm of walking turns from effort into something else. You look at the back of the person ahead of you, bare shoulders, tangled hair, a string of shells bouncing on their spine, and you feel a kind of calm, not because things are safe, but because there is no longer a choice to make. You are part of something moving, something alive. On the 7th day, the scouts return. 2 of them, tired, thinner than when they left, one limping, the other carrying a bundle wrapped in bark. They do not shout. They walk straight into the centre of the resting camp and sit. Someone hands them water, someone else gives them food. Only after their hands have stopped shaking do they speak. They have found others further south, inland, just beyond a river that breaks into shallow deltas. Not many, perhaps 20, perhaps more, but alive, holding on. Their shelters are raised on stilts above the marshes. Their eyes are wary, but they did not attack. They listened. They allowed the scouts to stay one night. They spoke of others, even further south. There is a long silence after the story ends. A fire crackles. A child coughs. Somewhere beyond the trees, something calls out once and then goes silent. You do not know what the others are thinking, not exactly, but you know what you feel. The spiral of bones, the fire circles, the songs, the steps pressed into soft ground. Your kind is scattering and returning, fading and reappearing, like tide, like breath. The world is not healing yet, but it is still here, and so are you. You reach the river on the 11th day of travel. Not the scattered deltas the scouts described, not yet, but the beginning of something, wide and slow and old. It flows out of the trees like a secret, brown with silt and heavy with heat, its banks lined with knotted roots and the thick green of moss that never dries. The smell changes as you approach, earthier, deeper, filled with the scent of things long dead and still decomposing. This place has known life for longer than your people have remembered breath. Crossing is not simple. The water is not deep, but it moves, quiet and sure, hiding its bottom in a shifting cloud of mud. You see things stir beneath the surface, fish, surely, and something longer, darker, harder to name. You wait there at the edge for half a day, watching the patterns of the water, reading its flow like one might read the lines of a hand. It is Marla who finds the crossing, a place where a fallen tree stretches from one bank to the other, its bark stripped by weather and polished by years of flood. One by one, you cross. You do not look down. The forest beyond the river is different, older. The trees are taller here, some with trunks wide enough that 3 adults together cannot reach around them. Their roots twist across the forest floor like veins beneath skin, rising and falling in tangled webs that catch at your feet. The air is still, not silent but muffled. Bird calls echo oddly, their source difficult to place. Light filters through the canopy in thin shafts, illuminating patches of ferns and the glistening backs of beetles the size of thumbs. Everything feels watched, not with malice, but with ancient memory, as if the forest remembers things your people have not yet forgotten. Here, your pace slows. The path is no longer clear, and the footing uncertain. You step over decaying logs that pulse with fungus. You duck under branches grown heavy with moss. Water drips from above in places, not from rain but from the breathing of the trees. The sound is constant, a slow, rhythmic patter, like a heartbeat stretched thin. You think of your fire back on the coast and wonder if the coals still live in their clay pots. You think of the spiral of bones, of the dark bird, of the scouts who spoke of stilt houses and watchful eyes. You do not speak much here, no one does. The forest encourages silence, as though it might allow you passage only if you agree to listen. And then, one morning, you see them. Through the trees, across a flooded clearing, raised on thin poles above the marshy earth. Huts. Shelters. Real ones, shaped by hand and intention. Roofs made from woven leaves and smoke-darkened branches. Ladders of vine and wood that lead up to entry holes barely wider than a shoulder. There are nets hanging to dry, bundles of something, roots, soaking in clay-lined pits. Smoke curling from one corner, not white but tinged with green from whatever strange fuel burns there.
You stop at the edge of the clearing, the others spread out beside you, forming a loose line among the trees. No one steps forward, no one raises a voice, you simply wait. The wind moves, leaves rustle, somewhere nearby a waterbird cries. And then someone appears, the young man, bare-chested, arms marked with pale scars and ochre paint. He stands in the doorway of one of the huts, one hand on the frame. He does not shout or signal, he just looks, and after a moment 2 more appear, then 4, a dozen, faces watching from above half hidden in shadow. A woman begins climbing down one of the ladders, her body thin but steady. She carries nothing but a long staff, her gaze is sharp. When she reaches the ground, she approaches, slowly, cautiously, but without fear. Marla steps forward to meet her. They speak, not in shared words, but with sign, with posture, with the slow offer of gesture and trust. A piece of dried fish passed hand to hand, a string of shells laid gently on the earth, nothing formal, nothing rigid, but clear. They understand what you are, wanderers, carriers of fire, one of many knots in the unravelling thread of humankind. You're invited to stay, not in their shelters, they're too few, too small, but nearby, in the higher ground just beyond the flooded roots. You help build a platform from fallen logs and thick bark. You dig shallow trenches for waste, hang mats between trees to shield the wind. It's not home, not yet, but it shelters sleep. It holds the night at a distance. Days pass, you learn. These people, they are different in rhythm. They live by the roots of trees that grow in the water. Roots they boil and grind, ferment and dry. They trap birds in high nets strung between trunks. They wear masks, sometimes, not always. You are not sure why. During the heat of midday they sleep, they wake in the blue hour before dawn. Their fire is green because they burn the pitch of certain trees, a resin that smells like bitter leaves and smoke. They tell stories too, but not aloud. Instead, they carve them. Lines on bark, patterns in mud, spirals, waves, broken circles and long, jagged lines. Marla thinks it is a kind of memory, held in shapes. One of their elders takes your hand and draws a line across your palm with a stick of charcoal. She taps it and points to a mark on the hut wall. The same shape. A name, perhaps, or a warning, or an echo. There is peace between your people. Not unity, not yet, but a truce of breath and blood. You trade. You watch each other. You sit by the same fires, even if you do not yet sleep under the same roof. You are still few, maybe 200 in all, if you count every child, every broken elder, every unborn heartbeat. So few, so fragile. And yet, here in the mud, among roots and smoke, there is something else. Continuity. The thread may be frayed, but it has not snapped. And now, in the evenings, the sound of 2 flutes rises over the water, not in harmony, but in answer. The days stretch out in quiet sameness. Beneath the trees, among the stilted shelters and the wetland paths of sunken logs and flattened reeds, time no longer moves with urgency. The forest has its own pace. And now, your people and theirs have begun to follow it. What once felt like observation, careful, suspicious, uncertain, evolves into something gentler, a slow noticing, a mutual circling, like animals sharing the same water. You begin to see the differences less. The children mingle first, as they always do. They chase insects together in the fern shadows, invent games involving stones and roots, flick mud at each other with shared laughter. One boy from your group has learned to climb the narrow ladders with spider-like speed. A girl from theirs now wears a necklace your cousin carved from shell and tooth. These exchanges are not formal, not spoken of. They happen quietly, as if they've always been happening. You begin learning how they fish. Their tools are different. Long spears tipped with bone that flex slightly in the current. They wade into the river, wearing nothing but thick layers of smeared mud on their skin, a natural armour against the biting insects. The river is shallow here but treacherous. The bottom moves. Every step must be felt with the feet before weight is placed. One wrong moment, and a leg sinks deep into hidden rot. But they move with grace. One woman shows you how to read the water's surface, to see the faint pulsing ripple that means fish lie just beneath. Another teaches you to braid vines into traps, weighted with stones and lured with crushed roots. They work in silence mostly, speaking only in gestures, sometimes with a low whistle or a grunt. You learn that their names are not always spoken in front of strangers, that a name is shared like fire, given carefully, kept warm. They are not your kin, but they are not your enemy. On the 12th day of shared living, a new sound comes from the horizon. Not thunder, not birds, a low drumming, far off, like wood on wood. a hollow, endless beat that echoes just beneath hearing. At first you think it is a trick of wind, but others hear it too. The scouts return uneasy. Something is stirring beyond the trees. No danger yet, they say, but the air feels swollen, a weight in the sky. The animals are quieter than usual, even the birds. You gather, all of you, around the largest fire pit on the driest slope. An elder from your group, her legs no longer strong but her mind still sharp, draws lines in the ash with a charred stick. She sketches the river, the shelters, the path you came by, and something else. A shape beyond, like a fan or a spreading tree. She says she saw it once as a child, many seasons ago. Smoke rising from an inland plain. Others, she thinks. Bigger groups, not like you, not like the stilt dwellers, different. Some want to approach them, others say it is dangerous. Too soon. The pale horizon has returned. That's what one of the marsh women calls it. A memory, she says, passed down from her mother's mother. The time when the sky turned colourless before the rains changed. Before the animals moved. Before people began to vanish. It's not a myth, she insists, it's a pattern. You don't know what to believe. That night you dream again, a dream not of walking, not of hunger, but of standing still, of earth breathing, of ash falling like dry snow. You see a great shape, something like a mountain, but broken open, glowing. Then darkness, then silence. You wake with the weight of it pressing on your chest. The next morning the wind changes. It carries a new scent, dust, warmth, and something faintly metallic. Not like the sea, not like the forest. It smells of dry lands, of stone, of distance. It is decided that a group will go. Not many, just a few. Scouts, volunteers, to find the source of the drumming, to see if the distant smoke is from fire or people or something else. You are one of them. They give you a small bundle of smoked fish, a knife of obsidian traded weeks ago, and a talisman, 3 beads carved with lines and strung on sinew. It's not protection, they say, it's memory, so that if you don't return, they will know who you were. You leave before the sun is high. The forest begins to thin as you move westward. The trees are spaced wider, the ground grows drier, more solid. You pass animal tracks you cannot name. Once you find a skull, deer-like but with curling teeth instead of antlers. It is cracked, not by weather, by hands. At midday, you climb a ridge. From the top, you see the plain. It stretches vast and golden, broken by rivers that run like veins through old scars in the land. Smoke rises in 2 places, thin columns, steady, purposeful. On the far edge, dark shapes move, too distant to count, too large to ignore. You feel your breath catch. The drumming starts again, louder now. You're not the only ones who survived, and you're not the only ones moving. The descent from the ridge is slow. Every step forward now carries the weight of something not quite fear, but alertness. The plain ahead is wide and soft in colour, a dusty, golden stretch of short, whispering grass broken by lines of ancient stone and low mounds that might once have been hills or shelters or graves. The air feels different here, less wet, less heavy with life. It smells of heat and dust and a silence too large to be natural. You and the others, 5 in total, move quietly. 2 of your group are from the marsh dwellers, long-legged and careful, their bodies lean from years spent walking in shallow water. They watch the land differently than you do. Where you look for cover, they look for movement. Where you think of wind, they think of scent. Between you all, a language has formed. Not of speech, but of eyes and signs, of fingers pressed to lips and slight tilts of the head. There are prints in the dirt. Not animal, not yours. Large, barefoot and recent. Dozens of them, moving in all directions like tangled thoughts. Some prints are deeper, some shallow, some dragged. There are also marks from something being pulled. Wooden poles, perhaps, or sleds. At one point, you come across the remains of a fire pit, cold and filled with fine grey ash. Around it, bones cracked for marrow, picked clean. A single ring of stone surrounds the site, deliberate, symbolic, or just practical. You sleep that night in a hollow beside a cluster of rocks, taking turns to watch the land. The stars here are strange, sharper than in the forest, with a wider sky pressing down on your small fire. You think of the spiral of bones on the coast, the carved bark in the stilt houses, the child who once dragged a stick in the sand. You think of time,
of what it means to walk a world so vast that it forgets you even as you cross it. The next morning, the drums begin again. Closer now, rhythmic, wooden, a kind of heartbeat from the horizon. You climb another rise, this one gentler, covered in flat stones that clatter underfoot. From the top, you finally see them. They are gathered in a low basin, hundreds of them, maybe more. Men, women, children, fires burning in rings, shelters built from wood, mud, skins, larger structures too, frames of thick trunks bound by fibre, covered in what might be woven grass or bark. There are animals here as well, penned in rough enclosures, small, woolly creatures that graze nervously near the edges. And in the centre of it all, a circle where people dance, painted in stripes of red and white, moving to the slow pounding of the drums. No one speaks. No one needs to. This is a people that has survived. Not barely, not quietly, but fully. They are different from you in every way your ancestors would have recognised. Clothing, tools, posture, voice, but also the same in every way that matters. They carry fire. They protect children. They mark the land. They remember. You stay hidden until nightfall, watching. Near the centre of the basin, the largest fire burns. Around it, elders sit. You see one of them raise a long object, maybe a horn, and sound a note so deep it seems to roll through the ground beneath you. Then silence. Then voices raised in something like song, not melodic but strong. Ritual. They speak not to each other but to something beyond, something held. Perhaps the land itself. You sleep in shifts again, uneasy now not with fear, but with wonder. These are not hunters barely scraping by. These are builders, carvers, keepers of something rooted. Your world just got larger. And the thread you follow, of breath, of story, no longer ends with you. The next day you descend.
You not approach directly. You walk wide around the basin, staying low, moving only in pairs. But the watchers have seen you. Of course they have. No movement goes unnoticed on the open land. They send one of their own, a man draped in hide, his chest painted in swirls of ash. He does not carry a weapon, only a staff tipped with feathers. He waits at a distance until one of your group, an older woman from the stilt village, steps out. They speak, not with words they share, but with hands, with objects. She offers him a dried frog skin, tied shut with sinew containing resin from the trees that smoke green. He accepts it with a nod, then offers in return a small stone carved into the shape of an eye. Later, two more approach. They lead you down a narrow track into the basin, where the air smells of smoke, sweat, earth and meat. People stare. Children gather behind adults. A few dogs bark but do not advance. No one touches you. No one shouts. You are watched. It is not suspicion, not quite. It is the gaze of people who do not expect strangers to survive the long paths. You are taken to the fire ring. There another elder waits, female, her skin painted red along the jawline, a necklace of knotted reeds at her throat. She looks each of you in the eyes. You lower your gaze, not out of fear but respect. She speaks. Her voice is low, like wood cracking in fire. No one translates, but somehow you feel the meaning. You will stay, for a while. You are not yet of them, but you are no longer wholly apart. That night, as you sit on the edge of their camp watching the flames rise and fall, you realise something you hadn't understood before. All along, you'd believed your people were scattered, like seeds tossed by a dying tree. Now you see it differently. You were not scattered, you were reaching. And here, on this vast plain beneath the weight of time and the gaze of ancient stars, some of those reaching hands are beginning to touch. You are not expected to work, not yet. The watchers of the open land allow your group to rest at the edge of the settlement, near the fringe of their territory, beneath a half-finished structure that shelters you from the wind but not entirely from the cold. It is not a gift of comfort so much as one of observation. They are watching how you eat, how you speak, how you move. Your presence is not unwelcome, but it is not trusted yet either. Still, each day one or two of them come near. A girl, perhaps 10 seasons old, brings a piece of cooked tuber wrapped in leaves.
She places it on a flat stone near your shelter and retreats, saying nothing. A man with a woven belt comes to examine your fire pit. He does not speak, but he leaves behind a lump of resin that burns hotter and longer than the wood you've been using. These are not acts of generosity. They are offerings for balance, a way of saying you are seen. By the fourth day, one of your companions, Iska, a quiet boy from the coastal hills, begins to trade words with one of theirs. A youth named Koru, narrow-eyed, always alert, with a scar that cuts from his temple to his jaw like a line drawn with charcoal. The sounds they exchange are clumsy at first, but patient. They sit across from each other by a low fire, pointing, naming, repeating. Stone, water, sun, blood. They make sounds like animals and laugh at the mismatches. Laughter is the same in both tongues. You notice something strange. They have a word for fire, but they speak it only in hushed tones, almost never directly. Fire is central to their lives. There is always a flame burning somewhere, whether for heat, for food, for ritual, but the word for it carries weight. When you ask why, Koru draws a line in the dirt, a spiral, then a handprint in the centre. He points to it, and then to the sky. You begin to understand. For them, fire is not only heat, it is a presence, a witness. It must be treated with respect, not only because it feeds them, but because it remembers. Later, another woman joins the exchange, a weaver named Sar. She carries with her a cloth unlike any you've seen, patterned with tiny knots and strips of colour that appear random until she explains, with careful gestures, that it is a record, not of speech, but of seasons, rain, births, deaths, migrations. Each thread is a part of a larger pattern that only the eldest know how to fully read. You realise this is their language too, not spoken, not carved, but woven. It holds the shape of time. At night, you lie awake listening to the calls from different corners of the camp. They don't sleep in one mass like your people did on the coast or beneath the trees. Instead, families gather around their own fires, and the sound of low song rises from all directions. Some melodic, others rhythmic, some just humming, like wind turned into voice. They don't sleep all at once either. Some wake to tend the coals, others walk from fire to fire, carrying sticks lit at one end, redistributing flame as needed. No fire is ever left to die completely. Koru tells you they believe fire carries memory between people, that when someone dies their spirit passes into the smoke and joins the greater breath of the world. That is why the drums are played during deaths and births, so the rhythm carries the soul along its way. You begin to see the connections forming slowly, like new roots in soft ground. Your food changes. You're taught to grind seed into paste, to mix it with a bitter plant that settles the stomach, to boil it until it thickens. You learn to tan hide, to bind it with bone and not sinew when repairing sandals, because sinew stiffens in the cold of night. You're shown how to make a small bird call from a hollowed reed, and how to hang fish in such a way that smoke curls through their gills but not their bellies. And slowly, you start to offer things in return. One of the marsh women shows how to store food inside tree bark soaked in clay water, sealing it with pitch. One of your own shows how to braid a sling that can throw stones at great distances. A girl from the forest teaches them a quiet whistle, used to track others in the dark. No one asks for these things. No one teaches them formally. They are passed along like breath, as though knowledge itself is a gift the land gave to all, and no one owns it. Then, on the 10th day, a circle is formed. It is not like the others you've seen. It is wider, with fewer people inside. The drums begin but slower this time, drawn out. The rhythm almost like breath. A space is cleared, and the elder with the red jawline, now called Yalna by name, steps forward with a bundle in her hands. She unwraps it carefully, revealing something small and dark and old. It is a carved stone, shaped like a face, its features eroded by time. Not beautiful, but intentional. She lifts it, shows it to all, then places it into the fire. The flames catch along its base, licking upward like they recognize it. One by one others approach. Each holds a stone, bone, a carved object, a fragment. Each is offered to the fire. When it is your turn, you look at the others in your group. You have nothing that fits this ritual. You've brought no sacred objects, no heirlooms. But Marla, the old woman who crossed the river with you, steps forward. She removes from around her neck a bundle of feathers wrapped in leather. It is old, worn thin. She walks to the fire, pauses, then casts it in. And for a moment the fire flares blue, gasps rise, the drums stop. Yalna approaches her. They touch foreheads silently. Then she turns to the others and speaks a short phrase pointing to your group. You don't know what she says, but later, when you return to your shelter, you find a new fire pit has been dug, neatly, deliberately. At its centre, a single red stone sits. You are no longer visitors. You are now a part of the story between their fires. The red stone in your fire pit is still warm the next morning. It holds heat longer than other stones, something in its texture maybe, or in the way it was chosen. You turn it slowly in your hands, feeling the roughness of its surface, the strange smooth place on one edge, as if rubbed often by fingers now long turned to dust. Around you, the camp stirs quietly. Smoke curls in slow ribbons from 100 small fires. Voices drift like winds, not loud, not sharp, but persistent, like the steady hush of a river beneath ice. You notice the watchers have grown fewer, not gone but eased. Where once every movement was observed, now you're simply seen. A part of the shape, not yet trusted entirely, but placed within the larger breadth of things. You are no longer discussed, you are included. That distinction lives in the small things, in the way food is handed instead of placed on the ground, in how children mimic your posture without fear, in how, when the fire needs tending, someone gives you the stick without instruction. But there is another shift now, one not as easy. That afternoon a man returns from the northern edge of the basin. He's older, his beard streaked with grey and dust, his skin cracked from sun. He walks with two others, strangers to the camp. They are gaunter, darker of eye, wearing bark cloth and bone amulets. You don't recognise the symbols they carry on their arms. Painted in black ash and ochre, a circle split by a line, a shape like a hand with too many fingers. The camp quiets as they pass through. The air feels drawn tighter, as if some string has been plucked in the marrow of the land. They do not stay long. They speak to Yalna near the central fire, not with anger, but with gravity. Their language is different, more clipped, more inflected. You catch only pieces. South, waters rising, smoke line gone. When they leave again, they carry no supplies, only news.
Yalna gathers the fire circle that evening. Not all come, but many do. You are invited to sit among them. It is the first time. Not at the centre, of course, but not outside it either, close enough to feel the warmth of the communal breath. A younger speaker takes the centre. His voice is clear and deliberate, rising with the drum beat and falling again as if bound to its rhythm. Koru sits beside you, his face unreadable. He leans in, whispering slowly between the speaker's sentences. They say the lands beyond the southern stone rivers are sick, that the earth moves, that smoke has returned. You understand without asking. Volcanic lands, far off, but not far enough. The old story rising again. The breathless sky, the buried fields, the endless red rain. Another word follows, again and again. Koru does not translate at first, but you catch it. It sounds like ash line. Later, he explains. The ash line is the edge, where the plants stop growing, where the light changes. The ones who came today say it has moved north. You don't speak. You don't need to. It is the same story you walked from seasons ago. The same ghost that drove your people to the sea. The sickness of the air, the silence of birds. Only now, it comes again. That night, no one sings. Instead, Yalna walks slowly between fires, carrying a vessel of smoke and crushed leaves. She wafts it into shelters, into bedding, into food stores. It is not ritual alone, it is memory, a warding of something old. In the days that follow, the camp changes. Work becomes quieter, more focused. Old shelters are reinforced. Meat is preserved in larger quantities. The net makers and trappers increase their hours. People begin to speak of the cave lands to the west, of the highlands where the air is thinner but cleaner, of ancient paths carved into stone, paths walked before names were needed.
You see the tension begin to return to shoulders, but also something else. Motion, preparedness. This is not the first time they've done this. They survived the last narrowing of the world. They will do so again. One night, Marla wakes coughing. Her breath is thick, and her eyes weep without cause. You sit beside her, pressing cool leaves to her brow. She speaks of the old mountain, of dreams of a black sun, of fire falling like dry snow, of people buried while standing, clutching children who did not breathe. You recognize the words. The tale was always dismissed by younger ones as myth, but now you know it is memory. Marla was there, once, or someone she knew. The breathless sky is not a story, it is a cycle. You wake in the early hours and the sky looks strange. A pall of grey has settled over the eastern hills. Not thick, not dark, but wrong. The birds fly lower. The sun, when it rises, is dulled at its edges. Koru stands beside you. "We will leave," he says, quietly. "Not today, but soon." You nod, not because you want to, but because you understand. Survival is not standing still. Survival is listening when the land begins to whisper its warnings. You gather your tools, your memories, your roots, and once more prepare to move into the narrowing world. The day they choose to leave comes without ceremony. There is no great gathering, no ritual of farewell. Instead, the camp awakens early, long before the sun rises over the grasslands, and the people begin to dismantle their world with quiet, practiced hands. You rise with them, the red stone from your fire pit wrapped in bark and tied to your satchel. Around you, bundles are hoisted onto backs, small fires are smothered and buried, and children are fastened into slings or pulled along by calloused fingers. The ground where the camp once pulsed with sound and motion begins to still, and you realise that these people are not abandoning their home. They are folding it, packing it into memory, into breath, into the things they carry. The smoke on the eastern horizon has thickened, not into a wall, not yet, but it has weight now, a texture that seems to hang rather than move. The air tastes faintly of minerals, of iron and ash. Birds have grown quiet again, and the insects that once hummed around every flickering flame have all but vanished. The drums, once constant, are silent. The rhythm now is the sound of footfall, of twine being tightened, of tools being slid into hides. You are not among the first to depart. The path ahead, you are told, must be tested. Small scouting groups will go before the main body, not to lead but to feel, to test the land like skin tests cold water. First the hand, then the arm, then the breath held. Koru volunteers to be among them. So does Iska, and when the moment arrives, when the thin line of scouts steps into the taller grasses on the western side of the basin, you step forward too. No one stops you. You take only what you can carry: a sling, 2 small spears, a wrap of dried roots, and the red stone. You move light. Everyone does. The scouts walk spread out, not in a single file, not a caravan. It is less a march and more a breathing shape, each person adjusting to the land beneath their feet, as if listening for something under the soil. The path begins to climb, slowly, up out of the basin and toward a ridge where stone teeth jut from the earth like broken tools. The wind picks up as you rise. It carries with it flecks of fine grey dust, too light to sting, but heavy enough to taste. Your skin begins to feel dry, stretched. At night your eyes burn faintly. You learn to wrap your face in cloth soaked in bitter root water, the same way the bark people did, the ones who brought the first warnings. By the 3rd day, you reach the ash line. It is not a wall, not a border, it is more subtle than that. The grasses thin, then vanish. The soil turns pale. The trees, few and far between, are twisted and barkless, as if something once wrapped them in heat and unwrapped them again. Insects return, but they are smaller, quieter, less frantic. Even the sky seems muted here. Clouds no longer pass overhead, but seem to hang in place, like thoughts too heavy to move. You find a stream, but the water is sluggish and choked with silt. Iska kneels to test it. He dips a folded leaf into the flow, then holds it to the light. The leaf turns black at the edges. He says nothing. He does not need to. The group moves on. You follow the curve of a valley, then cross a field of stone where fire once danced. Charred tree trunks still stand like sentinels. Nothing grows here, but amid the blackened earth you find bones. Old ones, small ones, human. They lie curled in hollows, still partly wrapped in tattered fibres that may have once been clothing. They are not arranged, they fell as they fled. No one speaks. Koru kneels and presses his palm to the earth. He murmurs something too low to hear. A farewell, perhaps, or a promise. The group continues west. At night, the cold deepens. The stars return, but they do not glitter here. They hang white and watchful, like the eyes of things that once saw the world burn. The wind hums across the rocks like an old voice. You begin to sleep in shifts again, not from fear of predators, but from the weight of the silence. You've known wild places, but this is something else. This is a place that remembers dying. On the 6th day, you find signs of others. Not people, not recently. Lines etched into stone, following no pattern. A spiral burned into a boulder with a mark beside it, a sun with no rays. In a shallow cave, the outline of hands, many of them, some too small to be from any adult. You press your own hand to the wall, and it fits, nearly. Someone stood here once, and marked the world and was seen. They did not survive, but they were not forgotten. Koru says, "They walked ahead of us." Iska adds, "Maybe we follow them. Maybe we all follow each other." You rest there for a day. You leave no marks. You learn to walk differently now, in the ash light, softer, not from fear, but from reverence. You understand, perhaps for the first time, that survival is not just about food, or fire, or shelter. It is about remembering, about walking as if the ground itself is sacred, because it has held the weight of all those who came before and all those who tried. The scouts return to the basin, not with a path, but with a warning. The land can still be crossed, but not for long. The ash line is moving, and the world narrows again. After the scouts return with news that the ash line presses steadily northward, the camp moves with quiet urgency. The word passes without fanfare, like the slow shifting of clouds before a storm. You gather your belongings, feeling the familiar weight of the red stone in your pack. It has become a talisman of sorts, a silent witness to the journey. The path chosen leads toward the west, into lands rumoured to hold ancient caves carved by rivers long since vanished. The elders speak of these caves as sanctuaries, places where the earth's wounds are hidden beneath layers of stone and time. They say the walls breathe cool air and hold shadows that can shelter life when the sky turns hostile. The journey is slow, marked by long stretches of dry grasslands that whisper beneath your feet and jagged outcrops of rock where lichen clings stubbornly to cracks. The wind carries the scent of dust and distant smoke, but also something else. Faint hints of wet earth and green growth. It is a fragile promise, like a song barely remembered. At night, your group camps beneath the stars, clustered close around small fires. The flames flicker softly, casting long shadows that dance against the rock faces. The silence is heavy but not oppressive. Instead, it feels like the pause before a deep breath, a moment held between two worlds. Along the way, you watch the sky change. The sun grows dimmer, its light filtered through a haze that seems to settle on everything like a thin veil. The birds, once plentiful, are now a rare song in the distance, their calls sparse and tentative. Insects have nearly disappeared, and the wind is your constant companion, sometimes a gentle murmur, sometimes a sharp whistle that cuts through the stillness. When you finally reach the caves, The entrance yawns wide and dark before you, framed by towering stone pillars worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. The air here is cooler, carrying a dampness that clings to your skin and seeps into your bones. Inside, the walls are etched with ancient markings, swirls and lines that speak of time and place, of life and death, of stories passed from hand to hand. You move deeper into the cavern, the soft scrape of feet on stone echoing softly in the vast silence. The light from your fire flickers against the walls, revealing more drawings, figures dancing, animals hunted, hands reaching out. These images feel like a language older than speech, a memory carved into the very bones of the earth. Here, in this shelter of stone, the world feels still. The ash line's creeping shadow does not reach beneath these walls. For the first time in many days, you feel a fragile hope settle in your chest, not because the danger has passed, but because you have found a refuge. As you settle near the fire, the sound of dripping water fills the cave, steady and rhythmic like a heartbeat. It soothes and reminds you that even in the hardest places, life endures. Outside, the wind sighs against the stone mouth of the cave, a soft lullaby carried on the breath of the earth itself. You realize that this cave is more than shelter. It is a promise that even when the world narrows, there are spaces held safe by memory and stone, and as long as those spaces exist, so does the hope of a tomorrow yet to come. The days stretch thin inside the cave, each one folding quietly into the next, marked only by the shifting light at the entrance and the steady drip of water echoing in the stillness. The air is cool and damp, clinging to your skin like a forgotten thought, and the shadows seem to press close, curling around every corner as if the stone itself is breathing. Outside, you know, the ash line creeps onward, a silent tide swallowing the world beyond the cave's protective mouth. Inside, the weight of that knowledge settles like dust in the quiet.
You watch the others. They move with slow, deliberate care, conserving energy but never resting completely. The elders speak less now, their voices lowered into whispers, and when they do, it is often in the language of the earth. Names for stones, for roots, for the small unseen things that survive beneath decay. Children trace the ancient carvings on the walls with tentative fingers, learning stories older than memory itself, as if the drawings can teach them the shape of time and loss. The fire flickers low, casting long shadows that seem to move on their own, dancing like ghosts of those who once called these caves home. Your own thoughts drift, carried by the steady rhythm of the dripping water. You think of the world outside, the land growing harder, less forgiving with each passing day. The silence that has grown thicker, heavier, a blanket smothering the life that was once so vibrant. The ash that falls not like snow, but like quiet mourning. You remember the bones found beneath scorched earth, the hands pressed into stone walls, the voices lost in wind. You feel the ache of all those who came before you, their stories layered beneath the earth like sediment, waiting to be unearthed. At times, the darkness presses too close. The cave is a refuge, yes, but it is also a reminder of what was lost, the narrow world beyond, shrinking with each breath of smoke and ash, threatens to erase the fragile thread of life you clutch so tightly. You wonder if the next dawn will bring another step forward, or the final silence. Yea, in the quiet moments between fear and hope, there is a fragile beauty. The water's drip is a steady heartbeat, the soft crackle of fire a warm companion. The carvings on the walls tell stories not just of endings but of resilience. You feel the pulse of the earth beneath your feet, slow but unyielding, and it reminds you that even in the deepest shadow, life finds a way to whisper. The cave holds you now, a weighty silence that is not empty but full of memory, of waiting, of the quiet strength that comes from knowing how close the edge can be, and still choosing to carry on. Time inside the cave stretches and bends, measured not in days or nights, but in the subtle changes of light, filtering through cracks in the stone, and the soft pulse of the earth beneath your feet. You find yourself drawn often to the cave's darker corners, where faint traces of green cling stubbornly to damp rock, mosses, tiny ferns, roots winding like delicate threads in the cold air. They are quiet survivors, fragile yet unyielding, weaving life into the stone, as if reminding you that even here, beneath the weight of ash and shadow, the world still breathes. You touch the roots lightly, feeling the thin, cool strands press against your fingers. Somewhere far beyond the cave,
beyond the ash line's advancing grip, there must be soil still alive with rain and sun. But here, these fragile threads anchor you. They are a lifeline between the dark past and the uncertain future. Their slow, steady growth, a quiet rebellion against the silence closing in outside. The others notice these small signs too. They begin to gather what little green remains, clumps of moss, fibrous roots, bitter leaves, and bring them into the cave, placing them carefully near the fire or weaving them into bedding. It is not just food or medicine, it is a gesture, a way of saying that life persists even when the sky burns and the earth turns cold. At night, you listen to the whispered stories passed between elders, their voices low and steady like the hum of the earth itself. They speak of the roots as ancient things, connectors between worlds, channels for memory. Some say the roots carry the voices of those who walked before, that if you listen closely, you can hear their songs beneath the drip of water and the crackle of fire. You lean close to the moss, quieting your breath, letting your hands rest gently on the soft green. For a moment, you imagine the lives wrapped in those roots, the hands that once tended the earth, the faces turned towards sun and rain. You imagine the stories folded into the soil, stories of survival and loss, of love and fear and the stubborn refusal to vanish. Outside the cave, the ash continues to fall, a slow, persistent drift that blankets the world beyond your refuge. But inside, surrounded by stone and root, you feel a fragile hope take root alongside the green. It is not loud or certain, more like a quiet promise, whispered between the earth and sky, a reminder that even in the narrowest moments, life finds a way to weave itself into the shadows, growing, reaching, waiting. And so you sit among the roots and stone, the soft light of the fire warming your face, the distant weight of the ash pressing just beyond the cave's mouth. You listen to the slow, steady whisper of life beneath your fingers, and remember that survival is not just enduring, but continuing to grow, even when the world seems to be fading around you. The fragile peace within the cave holds, but outside the world grows restless. The ash line presses steadily onward, a creeping shadow that dims the horizon and steals the warmth from the air. Each morning you notice the sky's soft grey haze thickening, blurring the edges of the distant hills and swallowing the sun's golden light. The wind shifts, sometimes gentle, sometimes sharp, carrying the faint, bitter scent of smoke and earth turned to dust. It whispers warnings, like a voice just beyond hearing. Within the shelter of stone, the camp moves with quiet urgency. The elders gather more often, their conversations low and serious, weaving plans for survival and passage. Maps of the stars and old pathways are drawn in the dust, traced with fingers calloused by time and hope. You listen closely, learning the routes that might lead beyond the ash, beyond the narrowing world. Each path carries risk, a chance of waterless stretches, barren lands or unknown dangers, but the promise of life beyond is a light too vital to ignore. The children grow restless, their bright eyes catching flickers of sunlight as it filters through cracks in the rock. They press their small hands against the cave walls, tracing the ancient carvings, their voices soft with questions. What lies beyond the ash? Will the sky clear again? The elders answer in stories, some old as the stone itself, others woven from cautious hope, reminding the young ones of the resilience etched in their blood. One evening, as the fire flickers low, Karoo speaks softly to you about the coming journey. He tells of storms gathering beyond the cave, storms not only of weather, but of earth and fire and sky. The world outside is shifting, restless and uncertain, but it calls to those who still breathe. You feel the weight of his words settle like dust. The cave, the roots, the fire, they are shelter for now, but they cannot hold forever. The camp prepares to move once more. The path will lead into the unknown, toward lands whispered of in memory and myth. The journey will be long and hard, filled with the silence of ash and the breath of wind, but it is a path forward, a fragile thread of hope in a world edging close to silence. As the fire dies low and the stars emerge softly in the sky above, you realize that survival is no longer just a matter of holding on, it is a matter of moving, always moving, through the narrowing world toward whatever light remains beyond the shadow. Before the first light softens the night sky, the camp stirs quietly, each movement deliberate and measured. There is no haste here, only a shared understanding that the moment to leave has arrived. The cave, which has held your small world through ash and silence, feels heavier now, as if it mourns the loss of those who once found refuge within its walls. You gather your few belongings, the familiar weight of the red stone resting against your side, its smooth surface a silent reminder of all that has passed. Along the way, the elders pause often, reading the land like a book written in shadows and light. They trace fingers over cracked bark and crushed leaves, searching for signs of water or shelter, listening for the faintest murmur of life hidden beneath the ash. Their faces are etched with weariness, but also a deep, patient knowledge, an understanding born of surviving the narrowest of times. As you walk, you think of those who came before, the ones whose bones rest beneath the scorched earth, whose hands left marks on stone walls, whose stories are woven into the roots and rocks. You carry their memory like a thread, fragile but unbroken, tying the past to the uncertain future. The landscape begins to change. The ash thins, replaced slowly by the scent of damp earth and growing things. Small birds flit cautiously through the branches, their songs tentative but alive. The wind softens, carrying warmth and the promise of rain. A stream appears ahead, its waters clear and cold, a shimmering ribbon through the quiet land. You kneel beside it, dipping your hands into the cool flow. The water is life made tangible, moving, breathing, a quiet promise that even after the deepest shadow, the world can still find its way back to light. Around you the others gather, faces lifted to the sky, eyes bright with the fragile hope of new beginnings, and as the sun breaks fully through the haze, bathing the land in gentle light, you understand that this journey is far from over, but here, at the edge of light and shadow, life waits, waiting to be carried forward. One breath, one step, one moment at a time. The world has almost faded, but it has not vanished. Not yet. And so you walk on. The journey has carried you far beyond the shelter of stone and ash, into a land slowly waking from a long and quiet sleep. The morning sun spills golden light across fields where tender shoots of green reach toward the sky, their fragile leaves trembling in a soft breeze. The air smells fresh, rich with earth and rain and the subtle sweetness of life returning. It is a scent so delicate, so new that it seems to hold the weight of all that was lost and all that might still be found. You stand quietly among the others, the small band of survivors whose footsteps trace a path through this reborn world. Each face is etched with fatigue and resolve, the quiet strength of those who have carried the fragile flame of humanity through its darkest hour. Around you the land hums softly, the distant call of birds, the rustle of leaves, the gentle murmur of water flowing through untouched streams. In this moment the past and future seem to fold together, linked by the slender thread of life that has refused to break. You remember the long shadows of ash, the silence pressed heavy on the cave walls, the fragile roots clinging stubbornly to stone, and you realize that all of it, the loss, the waiting, the endless journey, has brought you here, to this fragile dawn. The sky above stretches wide and open, a vast canvas painted with soft blues and warm light. The world breathes around you, slow and steady, alive with possibility. The earth beneath your feet feels firm and welcoming, a quiet promise that life, no matter how fragile, will find a way to endure. You take a step forward, the soft earth giving way beneath your feet, carrying you into the unknown but hopeful future. The journey will continue, marked by the stories you carry, the memories you cherish, and the quiet courage of those who walk beside you. This is the first dawn of tomorrow, the world after the silence, the beginning of life's gentle return. And as the light grows stronger, you move forward, one slow, steady step at a time, Our journey is over. Sleep well.